Lushootseed, dai ha. Dx၀ləšucid. Dx၀ləšucid is my Indian name. Lois Landgrebe, seed stock. Lois Landgrebe's my English name. Lois also. We were going over the ancestors yesterday. So those of you who've made it to dxʷləšucid, those are here today, but dxʷləšucid. Let's quickly, we went over very quickly Lizzie and how she did fabulous work as a Lushootseed speaker and a storyteller, and how she contributed to the Lushootseed language department with her recordings. And we had Kana, the director and manager of cultural resources, and also of the Hubble Cultural Center. And he was an art major down in Santa Fe. So quickly, all this, yes, he oversaw the canoes during the first start of the canoe journey, and a wonderful cassette. So, and there was Taksha Blue. So, and she was also a dynamic storyteller. She had a memorial garden, and she had a building down at Seattle University named after her. So she did a lot of translation work, including dxʷləšucid and helping write the Lushootseed dictionary, which contributes today to a lot of language programs. So, and her granddaughter, Jill Lapointe, is still running the Lushootseed Research Foundation. And we had Stan Jones. He was a dynamically wonderful leader of Tulalip tribes. He was our advocate for sovereignty rights and for treaty rights, and definite leader. He broke ground with so many different buildings and projects and programs, and he wrote his book, Our Way. So I'm going to continue with William Shelton. So he was a dospayak, he was a carver. Uhoyu ti siahob slala story poles, and he made or carved out canoes. And he did one that's down at the Hubble Cultural Center. No, he did two of them. It's a river canoe in the hallway, and the small one was for his grandson, Wayne Williams. And he has he created several story poles. They weren't necessarily totem poles, because that's more north. That he carved stories and characters of stories on the pole. So his poles kind of held a lot of stories, like a dozen stories on the pole. Each figurine is from a story. And he did his spirit pole, which was very big, where he interviewed several stobobs. So, and in their spirit quest experiences. So he wanted to, of course, educate the public and communities with Snohomish, Sololob, the history of the Snohomish. So he kind of wanted to bridge, and close that gap so that folks could understand the Snohomish better. So he had created books along with his story poles. And Mr. Shelton was also an advocate. He went down to the government and he had proposed for the building of the longhouse at Tulalip because longhouses were outlawed. They weren't allowed. And so he used the treaty as he said that we wished to celebrate the signing of the treaty. And the government was very pleased that this was going to be an official day, treaty days. And it is still happening today. So the government granted, as long as they had the lumber and they built the Tulalip Longhouse. And of course, that was in 1914. The Tulalip Longhouse has had, I think, 3 facelifts or 4. It's been rebuilt or constructed, so it's safer. And a lot of his family heirlooms and collections went to the Hebulb Cultural Center. So including the canoes and so much other stuff. Definite. Oops. Oh, okay. So here is Bernie Kai Gobin. So he was a carver. As you can see, that beautiful mask. He was also a fisherman. Dx၀លែշուcid. As Da'atub ati hatchery, fish hatchery. This was named after him. So he was the director of fisheries, and he wanted to preserve and protect the salmon runs because he knew that the salmon weren't appearing as often and as much. So he really advocated to get funding. And they first started out with not that much money. And they started out with kiddie pools. So they started out doing the eggs and fries and all that in kiddie pools. So it was a small project and program that became as big as what it is today, the fish hatchery. And we have Saswichab. So she was Martha Lamont. So, and Martha was a definite language warrior, Tubshida ati dx၀លែšucid. And she was definitely an advocate for educating culture. She stood next to the Sheltons when they wanted to provide educational gatherings, and she had showed them her support by showing up, being there, and standing next to them and drumming. Yeah, a language warrior, definitely. She, when I heard her recordings, even as a language warrior myself, she just, her first few sentences, I have to pause and really figure out what she's saying. So she is just, Lushootseed rolls off her tongue like English off of ours. So, and storytelling, definitely. Dus Yehob, she was a definite dynamic storyteller, and her stories would just go for a half hour to an hour. And her recordings, I can hear some of the audience just encouraging her, hubbo, hubbo, you know, and she would just do, 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 do. So definite storyteller. And her second spouse, Levi Lamont, was also a storyteller and a language warrior too. And the both of them lived in a house that had many dogs. And where it was located is why it's called Dog Alley. So it's because of Levi and Martha. So, and Martha, of course, was recorded several times by many, and her phenomenal storytelling have really bridged out into various books and writing material. So, and it is also a pathway for Lushootseed programs because of her dedication in being recorded and letting that move forward in time. Uh-oh, there's my circle, guys. So this is Harriet Sheldon Dover. Hi, Olitza. So, and in this wonderful picture, she had did a video on her father, which is William Shelton. So, and she is a language warrior. She is, of course, she brought back the first salmon ceremony. And so this is one of her legacy, where she didn't want this gathering that our people did for first foods, the first salmon ceremony. She had brought back, with the help of others, to the gathering it is today. So, and this is to celebrate the very first salmon being caught. And it is a belief that they have come from a village, and that the King Salmon's leaders sent a scout to see if the Stahobj and the Stolagobj and all the other are abiding by their treaty agreement, or agreement to keep the waters and everything, and to honor the salmon as they come up the river. And there is a wonderful picture of Tulalip, her family. That's her father, William Shelton, mother Ruth, and her siblings. And the Shelton family was a small museum that was educating communities. And it was a creative way of them saying, you know, we are still here and we are still a people. And she was a large supporter of education next to culture. She is wearing a cedar dress. So, and this was the attire of our people. And of course, Harriet Sheldon Dover had written down and kept track of her life and put it into this book, Tulalip from My Heart. So which you can find. It's a beautiful book, and it really covers the aftermath of treaty, her growing up, and it's just a beautiful book if you ever have the opportunity to read. And now we're going to continue the story, because yesterday we started out with dxʷləšucid, and he was distributing languages, and he saw how beautiful the land was. And then he had languages still all the dxʷləšucid. So he wanted to look around, so he tossed them. And of course, they landed everywhere, and that's why there are so many languages here in the Pacific Northwest. And there's a wonderful picture. So, and then the sky was too low. Way quickwas dxʷləšucid twaltis abush ati tobu. So the people were trying to walk around because the sky was too low. Outcade. So and they would just bump their heads, especially the tall people would bump their heads into the sky or onto the sky. And so as the they would walk around with headaches because the sky was low. People had to crouch down to walk. And also, quatach alti swatufted, quatach alti spadil. So people would climb into trees, and loved ones would go up the mountain. And a squeal to yalab. So, and that is the people would disappear into the sky world because it was so low. So this is like loved ones going before their time. So, and this was not good. So a Lushootseed. So they were missed by their loved ones. And so this became a terrible issue. So, and that's when the people decided to have a gathering. So this was such a gigantic issue. It was hake, saw. So a school tube, buck, tobu. So all the people had gathered, and they couldn't come up with a plan. They could not understand each other. Because remember, there's all kinds of different languages now. And so this is from all over. And they couldn't figure out how they're going to build to shuckle good. So they were just trying to figure out how could we resolve this problem. So, and even the leaders were trying to figure out what could we do. So, and the elder of the eldest of the elders stood up and said, squatted, said only one word. This will be the word that everybody will have that teamwork effort. And that's all that would be needed. And so the plan was to take the tallest trees and make the longest poles. And Yutsub tube, help you. So all the people got the information. And so when the day came for them to plan that they were going to lift the sky, everybody went to sections. Some climbed in trees, some were at the bottom ready to raise those tall poles. And they were going to wait for the announcement. So somebody was going to yell this special word. And so everybody got ready for this. And this is even beyond this picture. So I always vision it as people up in the trees getting ready to catch that pole and help lift it up. So, but the first time, of course, Ukwiatsab atilok. Oh, Sali, Klihu, Bos, Yahoo. And they just, it only raised about 2 or 3 feet. So us speed, but still not good enough. They could still climb into the trees and disappear. And so Bakwiats yelled it again. Oh, Sali, Klihu, Bos, Yahoo. And they put more effort into it. And it was up 10 feet higher. And so that's when everybody could stretch, and the tall people and all the animals, everything was easier, but they still had to. And so that's when they called out, Atsu Datatib, you need to do more. And so yelled out, oh, Sali, Klihu, Bos, Yahoo. And everybody put in more effort, and it lifted even above the mountains, but still not quite good enough. And so that's when the elder said, everybody, Bakwak Biu to Yayus Atatib. Says, you're all going to do this. Nobody's to slack. Everybody makes a difference. So they called out again, oh, Sali, Klihu, Bos, Yahoo. And it echoed all across the land, Yahoo. And everybody that time lifted and pushed the sky where it is today. And so that's when everybody, us Ju'il, they were all celebrating. They were all excited, and they were all happy. But there was a few that were still out there having their day, and they heard a little bit of yelling, that special word. What's going on? So there was 3 hunters chasing an elk. And there was a couple of fishermen in a canoe, and they were pulling in the fish, and all of a sudden, all of them got lifted on the 4th lift, and they were pushed up into the sky. And they became a constellation, which we call Squagwichud, which is the Big Dipper. And so, this was a very special and unique story. So tomorrow, I definitely want to go over and do a little stroll through Honorville. So, and thank you so much for joining me today and learning more with all of us here at Lushootseed. So, and I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and Hoi.